Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. It is a Wednesday edition of the show. Want to say hello to all the fans, the Pewter people that are just joining today's episode in the chat. We got a fun one for you because finally it has been announced the Bucs Creamsicles are returning for the 2024 season. We're going to talk about the big matchup in the game when they will be wearing the Creamsicles and take an overall picture and outlook of what we are expecting for the Buccaneers this season with training camp right around the corner as we have a very special guest. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me this afternoon, we're very lucky and happy to have him on, the co-host of the Pat and Aaron Show, which you can listen to on 95.3 WDAE from Mondays through Fridays from 6 to 9 a.m. in the morning to get your day going. It is Pat Donovan joining me this afternoon. Pat, thank you so much for coming on the show, and how's it going?
It's great to be with you. I love the setup behind you, so much cooler than mine. At least you can't see much of mine. So, yeah, great setup over there. I gotta do work over here on my little podcast corner or whatever the hell I call it.
I appreciate the kind words, but in fairness, like you're in a studio when you're doing the Pat and Aaron Show, so you're there's only so many things you can do. When you're in the comfort of your own home, I'm sure obviously you want to relax, but when I'm watching like Schefter on TV or Rappaport and I see what they got going on, I want to, make sure, we got a dog joining the show.
I can't do this though in studio, you know what I mean?
Very true. What's your dog's name?
A lot of technology at the studio, but no olives. This is Olive right here. So
Olive. Oh, awesome. Well, welcome to the show, Olive. Actually, last week we were just saying we are a dog-friendly show, so as many dogs as we can get on the show as possible. But as I said at the beginning of the show, you're a co-host of the Pat and Aaron Show, Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 a.m. I've been lucky enough to be on that show before. I'm also a huge fan listening as well. For you, I know it's been a little while now, but has it been going from you guys used to be, drive time in the afternoon to now doing it in the morning? How is that adjustment transition, and how are you enjoying just the show overall with you and Aaron working together?
The schedule is still an adjustment. Like I'm still trying to figure out how to be my most productive when I need a nap every afternoon. But outside of that, we both absolutely love mornings. We love being able to get the show kind of out of the way to be the first voices heard in the morning every day for sports fans. There are a lot of them in Tampa Bay. And, as you know, we love working together, a couple of just goofballs that probably wouldn't work that well with anybody else. So, we have a blast doing it. And we're lucky to, been doing it as long as we have now.
Yeah, I've said this to other people before. I think the true magic of the show, or the fun of the show, at least for me when I'm listening, is
you guys call us magic?
Yeah, I would say magic. It's magic, I like when I hear you guys talk and go back and forth, it's like the same way that I talk to my buddies if we're talking about the Bucs or whatever team we're rooting for, or I'm having a drink with my friend and we're just casual and fun. Do you see it that way too, or what do you think has made the show so special to gather obviously the Goon Squad and everybody that's such big fans of the show too?
Yeah, I think that's certainly what we get from people a lot, right? Is nobody loves us because we're like great broadcasters or better at stuff than anybody. It's just that we do have the rapport and chemistry that we have, and it is kind of fun. And we like to think it's just like hanging out. And aside from from time to time we get guys who will tell us like, my wife doesn't like sports at all and she loves when I have you guys on because you're funny.
Yeah,
like that's probably our favorite compliment, when we can pull in people that don't even like sports. But outside of that kind of, for sports fans, it is like our favorite compliment, is that it just kind of feels like hanging on the couch and being with your boys, and people feel, I think, comfortable to call into us and say stupid stuff, which isn't always a comfortable situation with sports talk radio. But we look at ourselves like a couple of goofballs and idiots, and we don't mind if our listeners are too.
Very well said. It's a very relaxing environment, I will say. And you guys have had a ton of guests throughout the years. I'm curious, Buccaneers related wise, any player, whether it's current or former, that has played for the Bucs that has been a favorite interview of yours?
ironically, we haven't had a ton on the show for whatever reason. I think middays was tough for that, and mornings has been as well. But I would say this to this day, Styles G. White tells people that we're twin brothers. And Styles is, and obviously working with Ian Beckles, and a lot of the guys I know from the Bucs are kind of former Buccaneers because they're through Ian. Ty J's a guy that I didn't know a lot about growing up as a player, but since meeting him over at Ian's, we've become very good friends. He messages me like every day on goofy stuff from the internet and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I would say since I've been covering the team, probably Styles G. White, and not Jameis Winston, but his family. His dad and Aaron and I are very friendly and have been since Jameis was here. So his family, we've got to know a lot of them. Amongst the whole group are all my favorites.
The late great Mark Cook had a pretty good relationship with the Winston family as well, and he always spoke highly, especially of talking to Jameis's dad. So it's very interesting. I'm always curious about that. We got a cat on the show as well. You want to give another introduction?
We're bringing everybody into the show.
What's your cat's name?
I think they're hungry. That's Rhonda Meowsy.
Rhonda Meowsy. I love it. That is fantastic. By the way, I also love when we get super chats from people in the comments. Thank you to Meets McGee for the $2 super chat, who says Matty Diamonds and Pat Dizzle. Have you ever been called Pat Dizzle before?
Not a lot. You know what? I've got a lot over the years, although it's not as favorable as it once was. For some reason, a lot of people without any pushing in that direction at all have decided to call me P. Diddy.
So yeah, that one's not coming back.
Not anymore. Hopefully not. No, yeah.
That's like, and not on as bad of a scale as compared to being called P. Diddy, but people will call me Matty Ice like a fair amount, and I get it. But like, I don't want to be compared to a quarterback that blew the biggest lead of all time in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
It's also lazy. Like, how many Matty Ices are out there? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. There's probably a fair amount of Matty Ices, where someone in the comments before started calling me Matty Diamonds because I went on like a hot streak of bets. I'm like, all right, like I'll stick with that. I'm good with Matty Diamonds, but I got to keep the bets going, at least for this season to keep it. But anyway, let's get back to the Buccaneers. Thanks again to the super chat. So big news that came out today, something we've been wondering for a while, is when and what game would the Creamsicles be making their illustrious return? Last season, it was against the Detroit Lions earlier on in the year, coming right after the bye. This year, it's a little bit later, but still in the earlier half of the season. It was announced. It was on Buccaneers.com. It was actually in an article where they were talking about the Wear Red Day, the Red Out, which they're doing later on in the season. But there was a little byline in the article about, oh, by the way, the Creamsicle game is going to be week 8 against the Atlanta Falcons. That is October 27th, so fittingly right before Halloween. Pat, your initial thoughts to the return of the Creamsicles, and do you like it that it's against the Falcons versus, everyone else that they have on the schedule this year, which this is the schedule too, if you need to look.
I guess if I'm being 100% honest, which game they use them is not that important to me. I mean, I guess that they use them is not that important to me either, but I love that they use them. I got a great tour of the facility last year. The Rays, the Rays. It's baseball season. The Bucs, and where they
you did have a press conference today that you were at.
yeah, a little bit. But went into the Bucs facility and got a tour from their equipment guy, Brad Berlin, their equipment director, of kind of the back, and got to see all of the Creamsicle stuff and how much work it is for this one game to bring in all this new stuff. And if you've never seen the video, you'd have to scroll quite a while, but it's on my Instagram at Pat Donovan Radio. I was in there, and Brad, I said, can I try on Baker Mayfield's jersey? His jersey was out getting the captaincy, actually, the patch put on. So he gave me Shaq Barrett's jersey. And like, if I could fit, if I could fit in Baker's jersey, clearly I could fit in Shaq's jersey. Well, let's just say it didn't work. I could not get it over me. Those things are awfully tight, and not, if you buy the replica jersey, it's not like the ones they wear on Sunday. But no, the Creamsicles are beautiful, and I'm psyched that they're back again.
Yeah, I'm pumped too. I think they're one of the best throwback jerseys, not really just in football, but in all of sports too. I mean, I think in the NFL right now, it's the Bucs Creamsicles, and I would say probably the Eagles Kelly Green. I know Bucs fans hate the Eagles, and understandably
Me
so, but
too.
like
Yeah.
those throwback jerseys are pretty nice. I can't really think of like any other great throwbacks at the moment. And like the Chargers changed to their baby powder blue, whatever it's called now. So now that it's
Yeah.
the main colors, maybe the Rams with their throwback a little bit, but overall, I think the Bucs are at least top 3.
I would agree. I'd throw the Giants in there as well, with the Giants on the helmet. I always thought was pretty cool. I always hated the Green Bay ones, where like you can't even tell what the hell team you're watching if you don't know going in.
Yeah,
And I like the one with the Creamsicle jersey better than the white. I'm never a fan of the white jersey so much.
How do you like the modern day Creamsicle as we see here and with Mike Evans and everybody else on the team versus kind of like there's a little bit of a difference with the old school Creamsicle. Let me see if I could find the ones I was looking at before. Like there's a slight difference. I don't know if it's just kind of like modern technology and as the years go on, but the new school, old school with like what they wore last year, I think is a tad bit better than kind of what was going on in this picture with James Wilder Jr.
I would agree, and I've talked about this on the radio, but I might be breaking this news for some of your listeners / viewers. One of the things that I learned while going through and seeing, the changeover for last year with the Creamsicle jerseys was Tom Brady should have gotten his day. He should have gotten his game to wear the Creamsicles. They were supposed to have them the year before they did, and Nike had trouble matching the color, and that was apparently the holdup. Oh, you guys already knew that, yeah. So that's why we had to wait an extra year for them.
Yeah, and there was something with like, I don't know, like a factory or something too. Like they couldn't get them out quick enough. And I'm just thinking, you're Nike. Like how like your slogan is just do it, right? Like how can you not get it done in that sense when those jerseys would fly off the shelves with number 12 Brady on the back? I mean, they were still selling it the next season when Brady was already retired for the second time or however many times that he's retired. So yeah, the only image we have of Tom Brady in a Creamsicle, I remember he put it on his Instagram later in the season because I asked him about it. He got a gift from Doug Williams, who obviously is in the Bucs Ring of Honor and played in the Creamsicle jersey. And I guess he gave him a gift, so Brady wore it and put it on Instagram on his Insta story. It's kind of a shame that we didn't get to see TB12 in that Creamsicle because that, like, when he goes to the Hall of Fame, there's going to be a lot of Patriot stuff, some Bucs stuff, but just one lasting image of Brady in the Creamsicle would have been pretty sweet.
It would have been cool, and you're right. You're Nike. Like if you can get 30 new uniforms a year done for Oregon when they don't even play that many games, then you can get us our one Creamsicle jersey, guys.
That's absolutely a great point. Now, talking about the Creamsicle is always fun. Like we said at the beginning of the show, it's coming out week 8 against the Atlanta Falcons, which is a bigger game this season than maybe it was a year ago. Obviously, the big move with Kirk Cousins and the Bucs obviously re-signed all their guys, whether it was Baker, Mike Evans, and Levante David. But Pat, let me ask you, how are you looking at the overall NFC South this year? Does it feel like kind of a 2-team race with the Bucs and the Falcons? Who do you think is the favorite overall? What's your outlook at the division this year?
I wouldn't be shocked if New Orleans is a little more competitive than people think. And it doesn't mean I think they're going to win the division. I thought it was crazy last year that the second that they signed Carr, they became the favorites. And I feel similarly this year when it comes to Atlanta. Like just because you signed a Kirk Cousins coming off of an Achilles injury, that immediately makes that team under a brand new head coach. And listen, I love Raheem Morris. I'm a guy that I wish he got a job anywhere else than in the division so that I could actually root for Raheem Morris. And I think in the long term, he's going to be a very successful NFL coach. I remember the day I met him when he got the Bucs job, and I thought, I suck at football, so I can't do it, but I want to run through a wall for this guy. So I think in the long run, he's going to be a very good head coach, but I think they put themselves in a weird position with Kirk Cousins, who inevitably seems to miss games every season, even if it's just a game or two. You've got Michael Penix who's going to come in, a community that's going to get behind that kid. I just think things could get awkward in Atlanta this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if New Orleans is as close to or even slightly better than Atlanta if things get really weird over there. But to me, the Buccaneers should still be the favorite in the division. I think it's an ascending football team. I think you've got a lot of guys on the way up, even though you've got a couple of older players like Mike Evans and Levante David. And to me, I don't know why Atlanta is considered the favorite. I actually went on the Hard Rock, he's talking about bets, the Hard Rock Sportsbook app, the second that they made Atlanta the favorite and threw $50 on the Bucs to win the division, because I do feel pretty strongly that they will.
I agree with a lot of points that you made, starting off with the Saints, because to me, and I know they've been actually pretty good with Todd Bowles as the head coach. The Bucs are 3-1 since Bowles took over as the head coach. However, I still feel like the Saints are truly the thorn in the side of the Buccaneers. And, you know, the past 2 or 3 seasons, a lot of us have said, all right, this is the year where the Saints are too old and they're really going to break down. But then at the end of the year, like if the Bucs didn't win that last game of the season against the Panthers when they won 9-0, the Saints are going to the playoffs if the Bucs lose that game. And things look disastrous for New Orleans last year. Like Derek Carr, you want to talk about injuries or playing through injuries? There were some games, especially that first one against the Bucs that was in New Orleans. I don't know how Derek Carr played in that game. Like he limped onto the field and got hit and hurt even worse. And I think that really was detrimental to them. But I'm telling my brain now, I can't just say the Saints are done this season when time and time again, they somehow navigate through the salary cap, which has been a huge issue. And then their defense, while old, is still formidable. It's still, kind of an issue. And even last year, the Bucs could have clinched by beating the Saints the week before, and they didn't. The Saints beat them in Tampa. With Atlanta, Pat, I think there's a fair question. Don't get me wrong. They're way better at the quarterback position with Kirk Cousins than they were with Desmond Ridder and the guys they had last season. That's not up for debate. But I think there's a fair argument to be made that the team Kirk Cousins just left with the Vikings is just as good, maybe even a little bit better than the Falcons teams he's joining right now. Let's remember, Kirk Cousins had Justin Jefferson, who's the best wide receiver in the league. And don't get me wrong, Bijan Robinson is great. He's electrifying as a running back. He's not great yet, but he's electrifying. Drake London's pretty good. Kyle Pitts hasn't been used great, but has a lot of talent. Those Viking teams are pretty good with Kirk Cousins. And a guy that has not played well on the national stage, that's why they call him like Mr. 1 p.m. or whatever his nickname is, that he's always just really good at 1 o'clock, but sucks at 8:15 and 8:30 and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm not totally shocked that the Falcons are the favorites because everyone loves the next big thing, which I think is why it hurt the Bucs. All they did was re-sign their own guys. Not that it hurt the Bucs from like an image standpoint, not like from a team standpoint. But I'm surprised at like how much of a favorite the Falcons are compared to the Bucs, and I think you made a great investment going and placing a bet on the Bucs right away.
Yeah, a whole $50 because I'm a big time bettor like that,
Yeah, very much so. So I think it's still Bucs and Falcons with the Saints not too far behind, though I still do think it is a bit of a 2-team race. You don't have to give me an exact number of like wins this year, but like starting with the offense, like, do you think it's going to be an improvement this year? Do you think Baker takes a step back after a new contract? What's your kind of outlook on the offense heading into this season?
Well, I'll start with this. First of all, if Baker takes a step back, I don't think it's contract related. And a lot of people, and Aaron has mentioned this a little bit on our show, there's this conversation with some people about like, and it happens with a lot of athletes, right? Does he lose the edge with the payday? And I think that, Matt, you would agree with this. Anybody who's been around Baker Mayfield, that edge, Baker reminds me a lot, and maybe not off the field, kind of like my nickname. This name has kind of diminished a little bit in the public eye, but the way he plays the game reminds me a lot of Brett Favre, right? Like He's out there having a blast. Get your weight up, little boy. Like he's out there competing, and it's because he loves it. He loves football. He loves winning. He wants to be great. And I don't think any amount of money is going to take that away from Baker Mayfield, right? So if he goes backwards, I think it's about the adjustments within the offense. But my expectation, not that he was with Liam Cohen a long time in Los Angeles, right? But my expectation is that they do take a step forward offensively, and Baker within that, because you know this, the offense is very similar to what they did under Dave Canales with some additions. And I just think, and I'm not sure how you feel about this, very interested in what's going to happen at left guard with that battle. But I think it always, as you know, Matt, takes a little time to build continuity on an offensive line, regardless if there's new pieces or guys in new places. It always takes some time to build continuity. But I think what we see from the Bucs this year is day one, they're a more physical offensive line. We already know Rachaad White has gotten more comfortable running within that zone scheme that they're going to utilize a lot. And to me, I think right out of the gate, they're a much better running team, and that's going to help everything.
Yeah, and I think Liam Cohen's got to be licking his chops coming to this team. You have Mike Evans, you have Chris Godwin, and the running game was the worst run game in the league 2 years in a row. So he can only help improve it in that sense. But at the same time, you look at Rachaad White, you look at Bucky Irving as well, who they drafted, and you're thinking, all right, we have something here despite some of its failures. I think the big concern really, obviously, is the interior offensive line because, Graham Barton, first round pick, you think it's going to be a slam dunk, but you never truly know until they finally, get in the action with the preseason. So really the big question is, obviously, Barton, does Cody Mauch take a big step in year two, which I think he will, but if that doesn't come together, then you have something at right guard, an issue there. And then left guard, I think one of the best training camp battles is Ben Bredeson and Sua Opeta. My concern, though, is, are these guys that much of an upgrade over Matt Filer, who they brought in as a veteran last year, or Aaron Stinney, who was okay, but I don't think it wasn't like a repeat of when he started when they won the Super Bowl in 2020. So there's certainly a lot of great pieces to work with. It's just a matter of getting that offensive line together. So I do agree, it will take some time. It's just, will it take a couple of games or will it take a couple of months to really put it all together? But they did add weapons as well in the draft with Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving. Out of curiosity, who are you more excited about between those two?
Probably, God, that's a tough one. Probably McMillan. And really quickly to finish my point on the offensive line that I didn't actually, I kind of went off track and forgot what my point was, or what I wanted it to be was, like I said, we said continuity takes time. I think they're a more physical offensive line on day one, and that's going to make them a better offensive line on day one. And then when they build that continuity, it's just going to get even better. But I'm really loving a lot of what I've heard about Bucky Irving for sure. I'm a guy who believes that the better you work up front, the better Rachaad White's going to look. I said last year I thought he was going to be special. Clearly that was not the case, but I still think that's within Rachaad White. And Irving, I think, is going to be a great kind of change of pace guy. You've got another guy that can also catch the ball out of the backfield. So super excited about him, but also the depth at wide receiver with McMillan, whether he takes over at wide receiver 3 or not, from Trey Palmer, just tap both of those guys behind Mike and Chris, and the ability to open things up when they want to, if they want to go 4 wide from time to time, I think is very exciting for this team. And, there's been a lot of debate about, and we talked about it today based off of the article you guys have on pewterreport.com about what are the most interesting camp battles. And I agree that it's kind of at left guard, but, when it comes to that wide receiver position, it's an interesting battle. But I also think that the Buccaneers and Liam Cohen, they understand what they have in these two young guys, and they're going to want to see a lot of them. So I think regardless of how the depth chart plays out, both are going to get a ton of opportunities.
No question about it. And overall, I feel more comfortable about the depth across the board than I did a season ago, especially at wide receiver, like you mentioned. I view the Bucs wide receiver room, and it's nothing on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but I look at the Bucs wide receivers and I go, all right, there's Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then there's everybody else, just because they're on such another level and such another planet. But I like that. Yeah, it's a younger group, but there's still guys that have been here before, even though it's like Trey Palmer in year 2 or Sterling Shepard, I know it's his first year with the Bucs, but he has a relationship with Baker Mayfield, where last year it was like, or the past couple of seasons, all right, like David Moore had a nice moment, but
Yeah.
what does he really bring? And Brashad Perryman had brief splashes of brilliance, but not exactly too much that he brought to the table. Where like Jalen McMillan, he was the highest drafted wide receiver since Chris Godwin in round 3. So it feels like there's a little more of hitting the ground running with Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving for sure. So hopefully they
and we
bring a
also
little
how good
extra.
he was at Washington. I mean, you're talking about a kid who top passes from a guy that is now an NFL quarterback, right? Michael Penix, and was just was so productive in college. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and people say that he dropped down in the draft because he had a knee injury. Some people are saying he was better than Jalen Polk, who went a little bit earlier. So hopefully him and Bucky Irving, they can provide something a little bit different. Definitely a lot more energy to this offense, kind of like how I get a ton of energy when I drink a Celsius energy drink, which of course is the official energy drink of the Pewter Report podcast. We always keep the vibes very high on this show. And make sure you check out some of the great vibe flavors that they have at Celsius, whether it's the Galaxy vibe, Cosmic, Astro vibe. I personally love the Arctic vibe. That's my favorite. Anytime I get my hands on one of those, I'm always in a better mood. There's no sugar. It's gluten-free as well, Celsius energy drink. So it's a good way to start your morning as well. Say you want something a little bit different than coffee. I'd recommend trying out a Celsius energy drink if you haven't before. If you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink and you're in the US, head on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest geographical location where you can pick one up. Could be a Walmart or a health and fitness store, or it could be your bodega. And once you keep going to your bodega and you love Celsius, you want to buy it in bulk, you can over on Amazon. You click on the subscribe and save. You can have Celsius sent to your place of residence whenever you want. I'd recommend getting the variety pack because the variety is the spice of life. And you've heard me talk about so many great different flavors of Celsius. So why not try them all? But you're in charge. You're the captain. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Pat, you've been very gracious with your time. So I only got another question or two, and then we'll get you out of here.
By the way, I got my wife all of the different vibes from Celsius.
Oh, really?
She loves all of them. She won't make an appearance like the dog and the cat, but she's into all the vibes from Celsius.
That is fantastic. Always love hearing that people are fans of the product. So yeah, thanks for that little nugget of information. Glad that you guys enjoy it at the Donovan residence. But Pat, defensively, what are you looking at on that side of the football? Obviously, Jordan Whitehead, big free agent signing, returning to Tampa. Some questions at outside linebacker. What's kind of your biggest storyline for the defense going into this year?
First, I'm psyched about this defense, to be honest with you. I love what we got out of a couple of rookies last year in Kalijah Kancey and Yaya Diaby. So if they can get enough pressure off the edge, and that's probably my biggest question mark. And we had Scott Reynolds was on our show this morning, and we had an interesting conversation about that position because I had mentioned how you called it a Royal Rumble, right? And it's interesting, and I kind of want I'm going to flip the interview on you because I kind of want your take on this because I find it very interesting. I've said since the draft, if the Buccaneers are going to be good enough at outside linebacker, it has to be because at some point, Chris Braswell, like Yaya Diaby did a season ago, and it has to be fairly early, but at some point, he needs to pass Joe Tryon-Shoyinka on the depth chart. But then I read what you said about the Royal Rumble, and I kind of asked Scott this morning. Do you think there's a chance? I keep saying Chris Braswell. Do you think it's potentially one of the other guys that passes Joe Tryon-Shoyinka on the depth chart, maybe before Braswell does?
Yeah. So Scott is a huge fan of Marquise Watts, who we actually had on the podcast recently. He probably said Marquise Watts. I wouldn't be surprised if he did about like another guy that could kind of take over for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. It was
made the
so
Shaq
fun.
Comparison.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the undersized, obviously playing at a smaller school, undrafted as well. Watts, in the preseason last year, he was just dominating. And, you get it. You're playing against fourth and fifth string guys that probably aren't going to make the team. And in a weird way, especially like later on when I believe it was against the Jets. Like the Bucs were winning late, or the score, like the game was kind of done. So it's like, all right, let's just do a bunch of passing plays. And it was like watching Marquise Watts have his own little all-star game. And like in terms of, it's like watching Team USA basketball right now. I think on Saturday they play South Sudan. I can't wait for that game because it's just going to be Steph Curry throwing up lobs to LeBron, dunking and doing 360s. And yeah, exactly. Like you're going to be up by 1,000. You can kind of do a skills competition within an organized game. And that's what I felt like I was watching with Marquise Watts. So he's got the pass rushing down. And people remember he had that great game against the Tennessee Titans. It's just a matter of, can he do that consistently? And what will really play a role into this is Todd Bowles is big with like, okay, we're going to have our starters for the first 3 drives. Then we're going to have the backups for like the next drive. I wish he wouldn't do it in like hockey shifts. I wish he would do it more like, okay, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is better at stopping the run and setting the edge. We're going to play him on first and second down. But if we get into a situation of 3rd and 9, bam, let's throw in Marquise Watts, or bam, let's throw in Chris Braswell. So with Yaya on one side, to kind of answer your question, I still think it'll probably be JTS to begin the year. But behind the scenes, I mean, Jose Ramirez has done good things helping like Luke Gedeke prepare for the season like last year. I probably wouldn't pick him, but I think Watts is certainly in the mix. I think Anthony Nelson is a guy that you feel comfortable about if he has to start a couple of games because he's been here for so long and he's been steady Eddie, but he wouldn't be my first choice. If I had to rank it, I'd probably go JTS followed by Braswell and Watts. But I do agree with you. I think one of those 2 guys by the end of the year has to end up being a starter or at least push for more playing time because JTS is on a contract year. He's probably out of here this season unless he decides to ball out. And you know what? He could break out too, because what's been the thing on Joe Tryon-Shoyinka?
That would be scary, though. Don't you think that would be scary to be put in a position where you feel like you have to pay that kid based off of so little production?
I think they would just let him walk. I think it would be one of those like, all right, you got to prove it again, because it's different than quarterback. Because you can make the same case for Baker, like, hey, that was a great season. Do it again. Can you do it again? And I think that's kind of like, to bring it full circle, I think that's kind of why a lot of people are doubting the Bucs, because it's like, all right, Baker had a nice year. It's kind of like, hey, I dare you to have a good season, and then he did. It's like, all right, now I double dog dare you. Like all are like,
see, to me,
double or nothing.
Like I love Baker the dude, right? I don't love Baker the quarterback. There's some things that I like. I love him as a competitor, right? What we talked about earlier, that chip that I think he's never going to lose, how much he loves to play the game. Like I love all of those things about Baker Mayfield. But I also think he leaves a lot on the field when it comes to making certain plays. And to me, it's not something I think he's incapable of, but it's something I haven't seen yet. So I think the offense should be ascending. I think he should get better. And if he takes a step backwards, to me, it says he's not a guy we can build the football team around, which is why I think the Bucs structured his his contract the way that they did. But I do believe in him as a competitor, and I want to see him take those next steps. But to me, what we saw last year was good quarterback play because of the turnover ratio. Like if Jameis could ever have that turnover ratio, he would have been a great quarterback, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that Baker is ever a great quarterback as opposed to a good quarterback. But if he takes a step forward, I think he can get into that realm. But there's definitely things that I saw last year that, too frequently this offense was very stagnant, especially to begin games. Like the handful of games where he and the offense really looked in sync needs to be what happens more often than not for me to say he's absolutely a franchise quarterback. And I still think he has that to prove.
Right. The inconsistency is a little bit of a concern because for every, perfect game he had against Green Bay, there's also, the 9-0 dud against the Panthers, which was a winning game, but no one would say, oh, well, the offense won them that type of game. So, yeah, when you're paying a guy $100 million and the inconsistency is there, I agree. But this team, at least roster-wise, is still good enough where you might just need a good quarterback. I mean, no one's going to confuse this Bucs defense with, the 2002 defense that won a Super Bowl. But overall, I think it's probably a better, well-rounded team than that first Super Bowl team. And to a degree, it's not on the same level as the 2020 Super Bowl winning team. But I think Jason Licht deserves a lot of credit for the, overall sustainability of kind of riding the wave of we lost Tom Brady and some other veterans, and they've been able to get an influx of youth while also keeping the core, which is a very difficult tightrope to balance. So, Pat, the last thing I'll ask you, and again, thank you so much for your time. Is there any other storyline at training camp as we get there next week? I can't believe it's here next week. Anything else you're paying attention to with the Bucs that haven't necessarily talked about just yet, or anything that's piquing your interest, as they say?
Well, so Aaron and I talked a little bit about this morning, but just kickoff, right? Which is something you would never have said. You would never
right, you guys
said
have a
in your
clip on your
past.
Instagram.
But yeah, just kind of seeing what that's going to look like, more so in preseason than in training camp. There's a lot of things like I love that we get to broadcast live from training camp.
Yes.
Like a lot of times people are like, how do they look in the trenches? And I got to be honest. I'm like, honestly, from our vantage point where we broadcast live at training camp practice, I don't know. I saw some things, but there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
If you want to really look at line play, you need a different view than the vantage point I have and Aaron and I have when we're out at Bucs camp. So there's a lot of things I'm very intrigued by, and the kickoff is kind of one of those where it's interesting in camp, but we don't really see it from a good vantage point until the preseason begins on the 10th. But that to me, the aspect of, what does that look like? And just, how does it feel different with it being Baker Mayfield's team, right? It's no, last year we were talking quarterback competition, and does Kyle Trask really have a shot? And, early on, Kyle Trask at times, there were some things that looked better than Baker, and there was some people going, hey, wait a second. And, that's where, going back to quickly Baker Mayfield, it's just kind of, we're in that situation where you're right. Bucs fans know as well as anybody, you can win it all with just good quarterback play and not great quarterback play. But I've been saying it, Aaron, for years, and I don't remember where I first heard this quote, but it's not mine originally, but I've been using it since I've heard it. In the NFL, you're one of two teams, right? You're a team that has a star quarterback, or you're a team that's looking for a star quarterback. And that's at all times. You've either got that guy or you've got your eye on who that guy might be. I'd love it to be Baker. I'd love it to be that we feel at the end of this season, hey, this is the guy and we can build around Baker. I still don't know that we've seen enough before the season gets going and before they play this year to say that he is that guy. But I hope he is, but I don't know yet.
We got a comment from Lord Jimbo too, who says, I'm with Pat. I like Baker, the quarterback. I don't love him. And then he says he's a lot like Jeff Garcia. And it is interesting because you look at how the season ended, and it's like, Baker did have the ball with a chance to tie the game up in that playoff game against the Lions, and he threw an interception on like the second play. You want to believe he can be the guy that can lead that drive, a game-winning drive, but we didn't necessarily see it. But there is also a lot of upside to like about Baker Mayfield. So it is a big question this year. And I think you make an excellent point about this is Baker's team. Like, he knew the offense with Liam Cohen coming in more than anybody else. So, he's helping guys that way. And the kickoff should be fun too, because one, who's going to be the returner? Will it be a rookie like Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving? Will it be Trey Palmer, who's got a lot of speed? Do they lean towards running back because it's more like a running play than it really ever was? And big for the linebackers, too. A guy like Kalen DeLoach, the undrafted free agent from Florida State. You want to make this team make some tackles on special teams, playing your kind of a natural linebacker position. So, a lot of great storylines for training camp going into this season, whether it's the division, the Bucs themselves, the Creamsicle jerseys, a lot of awesome stuff. And you have been awesome with us this afternoon, Pat. Cannot thank you enough for joining us. So, one last time, just let everybody know where they can follow you on social media. We got it on the ticker there, but if you want to promote the Pat and Aaron show, which if you're not already listening to, I don't know what you're doing, but I mean,
the hell are you doing? Set the alarm, 6 a.m., wake up with us. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, Pat's on the radio, on social media, at Pat and Aaron show also on social media. And, you're never going to get breaking news from us. I think we broke news like twice, and once was about the Florida Panthers seeing strippers, right? So nobody's getting breaking news from us or the smartest commentary, but we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have a blast listening to it. I've been so grateful that you guys have had me on the show before, and you can listen to it on demand as well. If you're not up that early, you can listen to it on demand too, right?
I feel like that's true. Always on iHeartRadio. Also, we're putting everything on YouTube now, like everybody else, right? We're on YouTube. You can like and subscribe there at 95.3 WDAE. And I feel like I might be the first person to introduce his cat and his dog on the show. I'm gonna flip. I'm gonna do one more first, maybe first on the show. And speaking of you being on our show, what you got some time tomorrow morning for us?
Tomorrow morning, I am around. I am available.
Breaking news: Matt Matera on the Pat and Aaron show tomorrow morning. What do you think about say 7:30?
Let's do it up. I'll set up my alarm as soon as the show is done. I'm setting my alarm. Let's do
Lock
it,
it in.
baby. Patty Diamonds and Pat Dizzle on the show tomorrow.
Well, breaking news.
All right, Pat. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, man.
Anytime, my brother.
All right. Thank you to Pat Donovan. Now let's hear from our friends over at the Tampa Bay Bucs Cruise. Make sure you sign up today.
We're on the Bucs Cruise. Of course we're playing pool volleyball.
Hey, we on the Bucs Cruise, of course. Anytime I say Tampa, they will say Bay. Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey!
We're on the Bucs Cruise. Of course, I've got my Super Bowl 37 hardware. What do you think?
We're on the Bucs Cruise, and of course we had a pirate night. Arr!
Arr!
Join the fun with hundreds of other Bucs fans coming up in a couple of months on the third annual Tampa Bay Bucs Cruise, which sets sail March 7th through 10th in 2025 on the beautiful Celebrity Silhouette ship. This 3-night cruise begins in Fort Lauderdale and visits Key West and Bimini in the Bahamas. Last year's cruise had Yaya Diaby, Rashad White, Luke Edeke, Kate Otten, Jamel Dean, Christian Isian, Greg Gaines, and confirmed this year is safety Jordan Whitehead. There's also Super Bowl 37 MVP Dexter Jackson, Hall of Famer Warren Sapp, the voice of the Buccaneers, Gene Deckerhoff, and others. More players are expected next year. We already just mentioned Jordan Whitehead, and there's going to be a special guest appearance by Derek Brooks. Who doesn't want to see Derek Brooks? There will be photo and autograph opportunities with players, a Raise the Flag sail away party, VIP parties with the players, special player interviews, a water volleyball challenge, Bucs trivia contest, and fun games and more. So reserve your cabin now on the 2025 Tampa Bay Bucs Cruise, where drinks, including alcohol, Wi-Fi, and tips are all included. And that's with a $200 deposit per person. And it's refundable until August 16th. So visit TampaBayBucsCruise.com. That's TampaBayBucsCruise.com, or call 1-800-975-7112. That's 1-800-975-7112. I know a lot of people are excited for that trip. That is coming up. Oh, don't need that anymore. That is coming up in March. I see Nathan saying, what you will be drinking on the 2025 Buccaneers fan cruise, Matt? That's a good question. I like a little bit of everything, though. If we are on a cruise and it's a tropical vibe and a feeling, tropical vibe like Celsius, I will probably, I'm a sucker for like a frozen drink, so I'll probably do like a daiquiri or a rum runner or a mudslide or something like that. I'm thinking something frozen for the trip. But yeah, I'll be on there. Scott Reynolds as well, other members of Pewter Report. So we'll be involved in a lot of the events. I think we'll do a live podcast as well. And of course, we'll do some type of meet and greet or some type of get together. I know we talked about the Old Fashioned Bar, which Scott is a big fan of. So definitely excited to meet a lot of Bucs fans and hopefully Pewter people as well. So should be a good time, as Nathan Elliott also says. Fill the boat. Yes, please do. Get those reservations in. You still have a little bit of time. So shout out to the Bucs Cruise. Very much looking forward to it when it comes through. So kind of to recap the show, I know some people came on later. We had Pat Donovan on from the Pat and Aaron show. And there was an announcement today. The Creamsicle jerseys are returning. They are coming back week 8 against the Falcons at home at Raymond James Stadium. That's on October 27th. So it's actually very close to Halloween. I don't know why, or I don't know if there is a correlation between the Bucs doing it on Halloween, or if this year there's not as much of a history behind the Creamsicle jersey as there was the year before when they played against the Lions, and it kind of made more sense because the Bucs wore the Creamsicles against the Lions when they were in the NFC Central division. Nathan says, will you drink some Creamsicles? Yeah, absolutely. I will drink some Creamsicles. Will they have a Creamsicle night? I don't know. That'd be kind of nice if they did that. But yeah, this year with the schedule that they have, there wasn't really an outlet to do like the history of the team and things like that. So my initial thought, I mean, you look at the schedule, you don't want to do it crazy early because you're still in that heat of Tampa, Florida. Denver wouldn't have made sense. You're not going to do it for the first game of the season. It doesn't make sense to do it against Denver, who has orange in their colors. The Eagles, the Bucs have had a good enough time beating them in their red jerseys, so I think they should stick with those jerseys playing against the Eagles. Baltimore would have been cool because Monday night, you get that Monday Night Football setting, the whole world's watching. But the Falcons seems like a good time. You wear the orange, everybody's excited, it's Halloween, people are dressing up. They already announced military day, or salute to the troops. Salute to service for the 49ers game in November. And then at that point, it's kind of later in the season. I wouldn't have hated, and they're doing the red out for this game, but against the Raiders, that's December 8th. That would have been week 14. I think that would have been a very interesting time to do the Creamsicle jerseys because you get very, very pirate themed. Buccaneers are already pirate themed, but you get the Bucko Bruce on the helmet against that Raiders logo. I think that would have been very cool. And funny enough, behind the scenes, but I'm totally fine with it being against the Falcons. Behind the scenes, we were actually going to start today's episode wondering when the Bucs will play the Creamsicle games. But then when we got the news about the throwback uniforms returning, we had to switch it up a little bit, make an adjustment. It's like Todd Bowles making an adjustment when, the team goes into halftime and how they're going to play better. And, some people are not too happy about it. As Troy says, we lose every time they wear the uniforms. That's kind of the other side of it. Like some people view the Creamsicle team and it's like, oh, like that's when they were losing. It's not as good, even though they did make an NFC championship game. And then Bailey Adams wrote in his story today, kind of like the history of the Buccaneers and the Creamsicle jerseys, as we see Levante David and Antoine Winfield Jr. up on the screen. When they brought the Creamsicles back over a decade ago, in 2009, they got off to a good start. Bucs beat the Packers 38-28 in 2009. I believe Rondé Barber had a touchdown in that game off of a blocked punt that he recovered and ran back. But after that, it's been a little bit of tough sledding for the Bucs in the Creamsicle jerseys. They lost against the Falcons in 2010 by a score of 28-24. The Panthers demolished them in 2011 by a score of 38-19. And the Saints beat them in 2012, 35-28. And then obviously last year they fell to the Lions 20-6. So the Bucs are 0-3 against the NFC South when wearing the Creamsicle jerseys. Now, I don't know. I'm a little bit of a superstitious guy, so I do understand like not wanting to do it. But you're going to have to wear the Creamsicles against someone. Now, if you want to say, you could have worn them against Carolina in week 17. Yeah, that's probably more of a winnable game. But you want to get the Creamsicles out there and going. So while I am typically a superstitious guy, I'm actually okay with them wearing it against the Falcons. There's really no correlation between, the current roster and today and the roster back then, like, only Mike Evans and Levante David have been around the Bucs for over a decade. So, Baker wasn't playing in that game. Vita Vea wasn't playing in that game. Got a comment from Matt, great name, going to the Monday Night Football game against the Ravens. That is awesome. I mean, that's going to be a fun one. That's obviously one of the marquee matchups for the Bucs this year. They're wearing the Creamsicles against the Atlanta Falcons, which is Week 8. It's October 27th. They'll be wearing it against Atlanta this year. So that answers your question. Lord Jimbo 2 says, I think you should wear it for your most boring, winnable home game to drive interest, but that's just me. I totally get that. Scott Reynolds has talked about before. Obviously, he's a Kansas State alum and a big fan of the Wildcats. And he said that Kansas State has like an alternate jersey, and I think more specifically an alternate helmet. And he says every time they wear the alternate helmet, they end up losing the game. So he wants them to just wear it against like a cupcake team on the schedule so they could just get a good win and look nice in those jerseys as they beat up on a team. I agree with that. And if I had to vote for the Bucs, I would say do it against the Raiders, do it against the Panthers, definitely do it against a team that's a little bit tougher than the Falcons. But if the Bucs were to win, that's going to look way cooler winning in the Creamsicles than against a lesser opponent, because it will be a very important matchup at the time when they do play against the Falcons. It will be a lot of the line putting your chips forward. If you want to buy a Creamsicle jersey too, they're probably going to be a little bit expensive because they're a rare kind. You probably have a good deal of money if you are buying that jersey. If you want to manage your money the right way after buying that Creamsicle jersey, there's nobody better to use than Muni Financial.
At Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Dude,
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
That's right. Muni Financial has proudly been serving clients across the country since 1980. They can help you out with a number of things from brokerage services to legacy and retirement planning, annuities, sales and trading. They can help you set up a college account for your child or loved one if they are planning to go to college and attend a university. You do all that stuff at Muni Financial. And the cool thing is, you heard them mention Colorado. Muni Financial is all over the place. Yes, they have it in Colorado. They have it in Tampa. They got it in Oregon and Texas and Oklahoma, Atlanta, and, New York, Connecticut, all over the place. So check out Muni Financial. See how they can help you. Give them a call today. Get a free consultation. It's free $99. And see them across the country. Shout out to our friends at Muni Financial. All right, that's about going to wrap it up on today's show. Thanks again to Pat Donovan for joining us. Tomorrow's show, Adam Slavon will be on with me. We're going to do a Bucs Q&A. We're going to leave it up to you, the fans, a little pre-training camp Bucs Q&A. Anything you want to know, have a question for us, we will be happy to answer. We'll also be talking about the latest headlines on pewterreport.com that you see on our website. We'll kind of go further in detail with stories that came out today, stories that we have coming out tomorrow as well with the latest Bucs news, and of course, answering your questions tomorrow, whether it's about the Bucs, about the division, whatever it may be. Obviously, Super Chats get to cut the line, but we will get to as many as we can. So that's the plan tomorrow. In the meantime, if you're not already doing so, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment as well, and leave a comment on this video too. If you're a fan of Pat Donovan, if you like the show, if you think the Bucs are going to win the division, if you love the Creamsicle, if you hate the Creamsicle, whatever it may be, please help us build our numbers over at Pewter Report and our YouTube channel, Pewter Report TV. All right, that's going to do it for myself on today's show. For Pat Donovan, who joined earlier, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. We will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.